Hello everybody and welcome to Crofton Roman Villa, which is run by the Kent Archaeological Rescue Unit with support from Bromley Council. I'm about to take you inside and show you some of the remains of the villa that was excavated and have a look at some of the artefacts that were discovered during that excavation as well. Hello everybody and welcome to Crofton Roman Villa. Now, I am currently standing in the ruins of a Roman villa house that was built here by the Romans 2,000 years ago. Before the Romans were here, there were actually Celts living in the area. These were Iron Age farmers. They lived in wattle and daub round houses with thatched roofs, and they were farmers and they just got on with their ordinary business. They sometimes had little battles in between themselves, but generally they were just farming. However, over on the continent, something big was brewing. The Roman army were busy spreading out across the rest of Europe, conquering as they went, and in AD 43, 30,000 of them, of these Roman soldiers, set sail for the shores of Britain under the orders of Emperor Claudius. They landed. They had a bit of a scuffle with the Celts, but in the end they did defeat the Celts, and once that had been accomplished, then they could actually get down to the business of living. And one of the things they did was built this house. It was fairly near their new capital city that they built as well, Londinium. Now, this was a villa house. Now, the word villa actually means farm, and this is a reconstruction of what we think the villa house actually used to look like. You can see it was smooth painted walls with tiled roofs, and it was in the middle of the countryside back then. Down the bottom of the hill was a river, and this was their source of water, and currently this river runs along underneath Orpington High Street and can't be seen today, unfortunately. Now, for many years nobody knew that this villa house existed. And it wasn't till 30 years ago, when Bromley Council was planning to build a car park over this area, that this place was discovered. There had been some excavations during the 1930s, and so the archaeologists did know of some evidence that there might be something here. So they were very eager, when Bromley Council said they wanted to build a car park, to come in and see what there was, carry out some rescue excavations, make sure that whatever was here would be recorded, and the knowledge and everything that could be gained from a site like this would not be lost forever. So Bromley Council agreed, and the archaeologists got to work. They had 10 weeks, 70 days, and they worked solidly all the way through it. First couple of days they didn't find anything, but then the third day they managed to find that bit of wall over there. Great excitement, and over the next 10 weeks, 9.5 weeks, they uncovered this whole site. They had discovered over 10 rooms actually. Most of them were, you can see here, although a few of them were outside this building and unfortunately got lost 100 years ago when the Victorians were building the railway station out there. Now, as you can see, when the archaeologists excavated this villa, they discovered that these walls were built in a very different way to how the walls had been built in Britain previously, with these wattle and daub structures built by the Celts. These were huge, great, hefty walls made of flint that were stuck together with cement. The insides and outsides of the walls would have been completely smoothed over with pieces of wall plaster, and the wall plaster would have been very highly decorated as well. We think they were painted with red and green patterns. You can see part of it there. It's awesome. In addition, the floors. Obviously, in quite a lot of richer Roman villas, mosaic floors were discovered. We didn't find any mosaic floors in this villa. However, we did have the poor man's version, the tessellated floors, that are put together by these little red cubes of clay called tesserae, and these create tessellated floors. You can see authentic patches of these tessellated floors. For example, over here in the passageway, just over there. If you imagine 2,000 years ago, somebody was actually walking along there, a Roman was walking along there on that floor, which is why it looks a little bit worn. As well as these tessellated floors that were found, they also had some concrete floors as well. They're special Roman concrete. For example, you can see an example of this over here in room 9. This concrete floor is made of opus signinum. If you look up at this plan over here, you can see that what is laid out, the ruins that are laid out before you here, are in fact the section on the plan that is the green and the orange walls. So you can see that actually we have only got a small proportion of this villa surviving. The other walls and rooms extended out that way, some of which were unfortunately destroyed. It was quite a substantial villa at its height, and it was built in various different phases as time went on. As the villa became more prosperous, then various other wings and extensions were built on. As the villa became more prosperous and the farm became more prosperous, and the Romans had been here for a while as well and realised that actually it's quite chilly in Britain compared to over in Italy where they'd come from, then they decided to install an extra special feature, the hypocaust, their underfloor heating system. So what they would have to do, they had to dig out underneath the wonderful opus signinum floor that they had and install a stoke hole. This is where the slaves would place bundles of sticks and everything and set fire to them in order to create the source of heat. Then they would have to cut through some of the walls that they'd made and rebuild with an archway so that all the hot air that was produced from the fire could come through the archway and swirl around these pillars. Now, these pillars made of tile would have been about this high, all of them, all the way across, because this is where ground level would be. This is where people would be walking around. So you've got all of this hot air swirling around underneath, and so people walking around on the floor surface here would be able to feel the heat coming up through their floor. We've got underfloor heating here. Now, the hot air needs to have somewhere to go, and so they actually had to cut niches into the walls and install these box flue tiles. Okay, so all the hot air and smoke would escape up through the walls and escape into the air outside. And so as the warm air was passing through the flue tiles, you would actually be able to feel the warm walls as well. So you've got warm walls as well as warm floors that you're walking around on. So that must have been pretty efficient in order to help keep them nice and warm and survive these British winters. So here you can see we've got a wide selection of artefacts that were discovered during the excavation of this Roman villa. They were found in rubbish pits because obviously 2,000 years ago they didn't have the bin men to come and take the rubbish away, so the rubbish was buried and was left here for the archaeologists to find, luckily, because it tells us so much about things. Now, as we know, the villa house was a farm, and so unsurprisingly there is quite a lot of animal bones that were found there. This sort of farm was one where they looked after animals and grew crops as well, which is obviously different to nowadays. We've got a wide variety of animals living on this farm as well. We've got evidence of cow, we also got evidence of pig and of sheep as well. Not to mention goat. Goat's milk was actually more common to drink for the Romans than cow's milk was, so goats would have been a very important source of milk for the people living here. Other evidence of animals includes this red deer antler. Now, this of course wouldn't have been living on the farm, but would have been evidence of hunting that they would have carried out in the nearby woodlands. Other evidence of animals that were discovered, not just the bones, were in fact footprints. If you look on this roof tile here, while this slab of clay that was destined to live on the roof was lying in the farmyard drying, a horse came along and trod on it and left its hoof imprint there. This also happened with a dog and a kitten too. So lots of evidence of different sorts of animals. The dog and the cat, of course, and in fact the horse would have been working animals. They wouldn't have been used for food. As well as the land animals from the farm being a good source of protein, the people who were living here were also taking full advantage of having excellent trade links to the sea as well. Lots of oyster shells and other sorts of sea creatures were discovered on the site too. In order to prepare all of this food, then obviously you're going to need cooking pots. The Romans had quite rough and ready pottery for their cooking pots. You can see that this section here is coarse, it's thick, it's very, very rough, and it is blackened from where it's been sitting on the fire. They would have had quite a mixture of different sorts of cooking implements though. For example, this colander was discovered as well. Now, of course, if you're having a dinner party, the last thing you want to do is be serving your important guests in pottery that looks like this. So luckily the Romans had two sorts of pottery. They had their ordinary cooking pottery, and then they also had this Samian ware. Now, this is a replica of Samian ware, and you can see it is of a much different quality to the cooking pots. It's imported from France. It's thin, delicate, shiny, glazed, and usually highly decorated as well. Over here we've got some pieces of the remains of a large storage jar that the Romans used to use called an amphora. Here we've got a replica one, so you can see it would have been really quite gigantic. It's got a pointed base, so it would have fitted quite nicely in wooden racks as it was shipped across from France to Britain, and inside it would have contained wine, olive oil, or maybe the rotten fish sauce called liquamen that the Romans loved to try and use to disguise the taste of meat that was a little bit past its best. It would have been really heavy, the authentic version, and so it would have taken two slaves, to do the job of picking it up. One person to hold the top, one person to reach around the bottom and be able to lift it in order to first of all pour it into another container before then being able to decant it into jugs and things ready for serving. So, after 10 weeks of excavation that the archaeologists carried out here, they opened it up to the public, and 2,000 people turned up on that day, whereupon Bromley Council, in conjunction with the archaeologists, the Kent Archaeological Rescue Unit, they decided that it was a place of great interest to everybody and decided to open it up to the public. It is currently still open to the public. 32 years later, it's been successfully run all of that time. We're open to the public, we're open for school workshops, so feel free to come along. Please check out our website for any opening times and information, and we look forward to seeing you.